I know that thousandths are getting a little abstract or a little weird for you guys, but you guys can understand them. It's not that much different than tenths or hundredths. It's just tenths we can relate to dimes in our money, and hundredths we can relate to pennies in our money, but the thousandths we can't really relate to anything that means something to us. So we're just going to have to kind of explore our thousandths grid and kind of get a feel for what's happening in that thousandths grid. So with our decimals, in fifth grade we've got to understand thousandths, okay? So looking at the picture that we have in front of us, here's a thousandths grid, and it's pretty complicated it seems, but it's not that complicated. So let's kind of start thinking about it. So if the entire grid represents one whole, what portion of the grid would represent 1/10? Think about that for just a minute. Pause the video and then come back. Okay, so one portion of our grid that would represent 1/10 is going to be one row. That's going this way. One column. I hope you can see that dark line. It's a little hard to see. Do you see how the middle of my arrow is going down it? And then here, the middle of my arrow again is going along the row. One row, one column, or 10 squares. 10 squares is in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so there we go. How many tenths are going to be in one whole? Well, 10. What fraction of one whole is 1/10? Between each of these questions, I want you to pause the video and then press play to come back. Okay, one fraction of one whole is 1/10. And how do we know this? Because 10 tenths make one whole. That's in a fraction. If your 10 is in the denominator, it takes 10 of those tenths to make one whole thing. If the entire grid represents one whole, what portion of the grid represents 1/100th? One square will represent 1/100th. One little bitty square. Right here that's shaded. Okay, what fraction of the whole is 1/100th? 1/100th. How many hundredths are in 1/10? Because you need 100 of them to make a whole grid. Sorry, I did that one backwards. You need 10 of the hundredths to make 1/10. And then we know that a fraction of a tenth is 100th because we need 100 of them to make a whole grid. How many pieces are each hundredth divided into? 10, because you need 10 hundredths to make a tenth. How many of these sized pieces in the entire grid that represents one whole? We have 1,000. Make one whole. What fraction of the whole is one of those pieces? Well, it should be 1/1000th, because there's 1,000 little squares, so one of those pieces means we have one of the 1,000 there. What can you call those pieces? Thousandths. How many thousandths are in 100th? Think about that one for a minute. Pause the video and then press play when you're ready to come back. We have 10 thousandths that are in 100th because we take one of our 100th squares and break it into 10 equal pieces. What fraction of 100th is 1,000th? 1/10. How many thousandths are in a tenth? 100. And then what fraction of a tenth is 1,000th? 1/100th. So I shaded in some squares on our thousandth grid. What fraction represents how much is shaded in this grid? That means I need a numerator and a denominator. Pause your video. Okay, now that you're back, we should have 67 squares. There's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 67 out of a total of 1,000 that make a whole represent what's shaded in this grid. How can we write this fraction in words? There it is. And how can we write this as an equivalent decimal number? Okay, so here's our fraction form, and here's our decimal form. We need to have the 0 as a placeholder because we've got to have our number end at the thousandths place, which is 3 decimal places past the decimal to the right. So here we have a number up here. How are we going to say this decimal number? We have 5, and then I'm 1, 2, 3 decimals to the right places. So I would call that 5,000ths. How are we going to use the word and when reading a number? We use the word and whenever we have a decimal point within our number. And what does that decimal point mean? Why is it there? Well, the decimal point, remember what I said at the beginning in Module 1, Part 1, with whole numbers on your place value chart? That decimal tells us where the whole numbers end and our decimals begin. So the decimal separates the whole from the parts of the whole. Or you could say it as the numbers to the right of the decimal point are parts of the whole. What do the zeros mean? Is it okay to have them there? It sure is in that number. Can we add more within there? No, but we could add zeros to the end of the number, which is after that 5. But the zeros in this particular number mean that they are placeholders because I don't have any ones, I don't have any tenths, I don't have any hundredths, but I do have 5,000ths. Which is our greater value, 100th or 1,000th? And how do you know? Pause the video for a minute, think about it, and then come back. I would say 100th is bigger. Just picturing the grids, the little squares, each individual square, the 100th squares are bigger than the 1,000th squares. And looks like I'm right. 100th is greater because it is 10 times greater than 1,000th. And all of these discussions may or should be starting to clue you in on how our place value changes as we move from the left to the right of our place value chart. Okay, so now we need to talk about how we're going to use the word and when we're reading a number. How do you read this number? How can we say it? I would say I have one whole shaded in, so I have 1, and then I have a part shaded in. So I have 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 and 5,000ths will give me this number. And the and separates me from my whole numbers and my decimal numbers, my change, my dollars and my change. What is the role of the decimal point? It separates the whole from the parts of the whole. The numbers to the right of our decimal point are parts of the whole. This is not a whole thing, is it? It's just some change. So how would this number that we have be represented with thousandths grids? So we're shading, this is our, what we were talking about before. Shade 1 of the thousandths to represent any decimal number in the thousandths. 1 of the 100ths grids to represent any decimal number in the hundredths, and 1 of the tenths grids to represent a number in the tenths. So I've shaded in some number values in each of our grids that we have here. These are tenths because it's broken into 10 equals parts. This one is hundredths grid, a hundredths grid because it's broken into 100 equal parts, a 10 by 10. This one is our thousandths grid because it is broken into 1,000 equal parts, 100 by 10. How many digits are in the decimal number for this thousandths grid that's going down here? How do I record the standard form of this number? How many digits are in each decimal for the hundredths grid? We have 2 digits for the hundredths because it's going to be 2 and 0. I'm sorry, 0 and 2. How do I record the standard form of this number? There's standard form as we normally write a number. How many decimal places will a decimal number in the tenths have? Decimal number in the tenths, it's only one place to the right of the decimal, so it's going to be one decimal number. And then how do I record the standard form of this number? Well, that's how we write the number normally, so we would say 2 tenths, right? I have 2 tenths. I have 2 hundredths. I'm sorry, 20 hundredths. Or I have how many thousandths? You need to tell me. Should be 200. Hopefully we did this one right. I'm thinking this one's wrong. You can send me an email and let me know whether this first answer is correct or incorrect, and then why it is correct or incorrect.